Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military with Summary channel. In this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about the western Ukraine, about the western part of Ukraine, because the most important update is coming exactly from this area. According to information we have, during the previous 24 hours, the armed force of the Russian Federation attacked the territory of Ukraine with the Oreshnik missile system. So let's discuss everything in details, and first let's start probably even with the evening of the 7th of January of 2026, because exactly at the evening of the 7th of January 2026 everything started. So this is the map that was published on the 8th of January of 2026, somewhere at 4 or even 5 p.m. And here we can see the approximate routes of attacks that took place between the 7th and 8th of January of 2026, when the Russians, as you can see according to this map, were attacking just the Dnipro region. And if you remember, we discussed the situation yesterday, because after these attacks there be huge problems with energy supply, heat supply, water supply took place exactly on the territory of the city. And these pictures and these photos were published by pro-Ukrainian sources. There, as you can see, there is a complete blackout and complete national disaster in the city of Dnipro. So this is the situation in this area. And this is a very important thing, because this is a part of the massive attack that took place between the 8th and 9th of January, because the Russians were attacking the Dnipro region, and it seems that this was something like a trick. The Russians were trying to force Ukrainians to think that Russians, during the night between the 8th and 9th of January, will continue attacking the Dnipro region with the purpose to destroy completely the energy infrastructure of this territory. But this is not the thing that happened. According to information we have, first Russians began bombing and attacking the city of Kiev, and this picture was published this morning, and here we can see the approximate roads of attacks. And as you can see, according to this picture, the Russians were attacking the city of Kiev with drones, with cruise missiles, with caliber missiles, and with ballistic missiles, and with hypersonic missiles. So everything, almost everything, were flying exactly in the direction of the city of Kiev, and there were too many explosions, yes. And somewhere at between 1 and 2 a.m. of Moscow time, Ukrainian sources reported and pro-Russian sources reported, and Zelensky himself personally stated that there was a very high risk that Russia will attack the territory of Ukraine with the Oreshnik system. A massive strike using the Oreshnik missile may be launched tonight. A new massive Russian strike might occur tonight, Zelensky stated. Unusual activity has been noted in the area of the Kapustin Yar test site, from which Russia launched the Oreshnik missile several months ago when the Russians were attacking the southern regions. There is information about its possible use. We are unable to shoot down this missile. That was stated by Ukrainians. Furthermore, almost the same statement, almost the same alert was published by the Embassy of the United States of America in Kiev. This embassy in Kiev has received information concerning a potentially significant air attack that may occur at any time over the next several days. The embassy always recommends U.S. citizens be prepared to immediately shelter in the event an air alert is announced. And the Russians attacked. So most likely the Ukrainians expected that Russia will attack once again the Dnipro region, because a very huge activity was recorded there, and the Ukrainians maybe suppose that Russians will try to destroy completely the entire energy infrastructure of the region, because you know that the Russians are advancing here. Maybe Ukrainians supposed or decided that Russians will attack with the purpose to probably intensify their offensive operation, with the purpose to improve their positions, but this is not the case. The Russians attacked the western part of Ukraine, and when talking about this map, we're talking about this red line that goes from the let's say from the bottom right corner in the direction of the western part of Ukraine. So the Lvov region was attacked by Russians, and during the previous nights we received at least 3 videos where we can see the Oreshnik system in use. This attack, as you can see according to this video, took place at 11 p.m. and 46 seconds according to the Western Ukraine time, or something like this, which means that this attack took place somewhere around 1 a.m. according to Moscow time. And this is the video that we have already discussed at the beginning of the video. I remember this attack. I remember something similar we saw when the Russians were attacking the southern part of Ukraine several months ago. And this is another video from another angle. The Russians attacked the Lvov region. And of course, when Russians attacked the Lvov region, the sources began guessing what exactly the Russians were attacking, because the Oreshnik system is very expensive, very complicated. And of course, if the Russians attacked something, obviously that something had huge value for the Russians. So there were lots of probably suggestions. Some sources reported that Russians attacked maybe a bunker, the Russians maybe attacked a contingent or a deployment site of the Western forces or something like this. But later this video was published by pro-Ukrainian sources, and here we can see that severe gas outages in the Lvov region, a critical infrastructure facility has been hit. That was stated by the mayor of the city of Lvov. So according to this video, according to different updates, according to different reports, the Russians attacked the gas storage, probably in the area of the city by the name of Stry. So the gas storage was attacked, and the sources are saying that this gas storage has 50% capacity of the entire gas storage of Ukraine's gas storage. So up to more than 70 billion cubic meters of gas the storage could, let's say, collect, and the Russians attacked these territory, and now Ukraine has huge problems. Furthermore, according to information we have, this gas storage served not as a gas storage just for Ukraine. This gas storage served as a gas storage for some European countries. So this is the attack that was carried out by Russians. This morning, the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation stated about the situation. The Russians stated that tonight, in response to Kiev's attacks on the residence of the President of the Russian Federation in Novgorod region, on the night of December 29, 2025, the Russian armed forces launched a massive strike using long-range land and sea-based precision weapons, including the Oreshnik, and this is a very important medium-range ground mobile missile system. So as you can see, this is a very important thing that I would like to point to attention. The Russians used a vehicle. The Russians used a vehicle which means that that Russia's system Oreshnik is very mobile. They can launch this system from anywhere, from any point of Russia, because it's a ground mobile system, so it's a vehicle. And now these are the consequences. Zelensky this morning, let's say, called his European countries, allies, NATO countries for emergency summit, where Zelensky will try to discuss this attack, and most likely he will ask for additional help or for additional pressure on the Russian Federation. Let's return back to Kiev and let's discuss a few more videos. This is the video when the Russians with drones attacked the city of Kiev, and as a result of this attack, as you can see, we can see, let's say, the power outages online. So the sources are saying that the left bank of the city of Kiev has huge problems with water supply, with heat, and with electricity. This is another video published by pro-Ukrainian sources. Here we can see an explosion. Here we can see the Russian drone that was flying above the city. But another important thing that I would like to point to attention about this attack, once again, let's return back to this map. So this is the map of the attack between the 8th and the 9th of January. This is the map of attack between the 7th and 8th of January. So two attacks. First time, yesterday the Russians attacked the southern regions. This night the Russians attacked the northern part of Ukraine and the western part of Ukraine. But the most important, of course, is numbers. So according to pro-Ukrainian sources, between the 8th and the 9th of January, the Russians used just 278 air vehicles. Just a bit less than 300 vehicles. When talking about yesterday's attack in the area of the city of Dnipro, the Russians used a bit less than 100 vehicles, which means that the Russians, all in all, during the previous 36 hours, used a bit less than 400 drones and missiles altogether. And this is the most important number, maybe even more important than the attack with the Oreshnik system. So basically the Russians managed to deal significant damage to Ukraine, to its energy infrastructure, but the Russians for 36 hours used less than 400 drones, which means that the Russians saved their strategical possibility to carry out a massive attack with thousands of drones and hundreds of missiles. So which means that this attack with Oreshnik is not how to call it better, is not the main attack. Despite the fact that the Russians used this Oreshnik system, this attack wasn't the main attack when talking about the number of drones and missiles that Russia can use, which means that the most powerful and the main attack is just ahead of us. So this is the situation. Let's wait and see what is going to be next. Let's wait and see for the summits between NATO countries and Ukraine, what kind of decisions, what kind of statement they're going to make, and whether they're going to, I don't know, to make additional sanctions against Russia. Now let's discuss the situation on the ground, and first let's talk about the Zaporozhye direction. During the previous 24 hours, the Russians improved their positions, but the most important thing is the report that was published right before I started making the video. According to pro-Russian sources, as a result of clashes, the Russians managed to establish complete control over another settlement along the river Vgachur. It seems that the village of Zeleno was captured by Russians. This report was published just a minute ago, so we will adjust the map, we will get geolocations, we'll update the map, we will discuss this during the next video. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Slavyansk direction. During the previous 12 hours, the most important updates were recorded in the area of the city of Liman. The Russians, as you can see, managed to improve their position significantly, and these are the changes on the ground between the dates. This is the end of the 8th of January, and this is the beginning of the 9th of January. According to neutral mappers, the armed forces of the Russian Federation managed to improve their positions along TO514 road. The Russians basically managed to cut the road physically and to cut one of the most important supply lines that's one of the most important supply line that goes from the city of Slavyansk through the settlement of Starodubovka in the direction of Liman. So this road was cut by the Russians physically, according to a neutral mapper. Furthermore, today we received the confirmation that Russians indeed entered the most northern part of the settlement and captured farms in the northern part of the city of Liman. So these are the changes on the ground once again, just on this direction between the dates. So the Russians enter the final and decisive part of the battle for the city of Liman, and it seems that Ukrainians will not be able to hold their positions for a very long period of time. At the same time, the Russians managed to improve their positions significantly to the west of the city of Liman and to the north of the city of Slavyansk. So we're talking about the territory between the settlements of Yarova, Svetogorsk, Tetianovka and Sosnova. So these are the changes on the ground between the dates, and as you can see, some of these changes were provided by a neutral mapper and some of these changes were confirmed by this geolocation. Here we can see how Russian troops were moving in the area of the settlement by the name of Svetogorsk. So we had lots of videos, lots of confirmations that Russians entered the southeastern part of the settlement and that there are very heavy clashes exactly for this area. So based on this video, we came to the conclusion that the village of Yarova was caught by the Russians in cauldron without any chances for supply and support. The clashes are taking place for the settlement of Svetogorsk, and the Russians continue offensive operation further in the western direction towards the city of Izum, which is the highest point on this entire direction. And I would like to remind you that just yesterday we discussed that first sabotage and reconnaissance group of the armed forces of the Russian Federation were recorded on the territory of the settlement by the name of Lazova. So now the Russians were recorded here, which means that some huge problems are happening here from Ukrainian side. As for the Kupiansk direction, during the previous 12 hours, additional changes on the ground were also recorded. The Russians, according to pro-Russian sources and neutral mappers, managed to improve their position significantly around the settlement of Tishinkovka. Basically, the village was captured. Today, the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation can confirm this information. And the Russians improved their positions in the central part of the city of Kupiansk, and these are the changes on the ground. This information was also provided by a neutral mapper, and based on his report, we basically readjusted back the territory that used to be considered as a gray zone, also according to the same neutral mapper. We have changes on the ground, also in the Sumy direction. During the previous 12 hours, the Russians improved their positions along the second defense layer of the city of Sumy. The Russians managed to shorten the distance to the villages of Malakachkarovka and Karchakovka from the north and from the northeast. So the Sumy offensive is gaining momentum, as we can see. Furthermore, another important thing that the Russians weren't the only side that made a massive attack during the previous 12 hours, according to information we have. Ukraine also attacked two cities, and there were power outages on the territory of the city of Belgorod. This video was published by pro-Russian sources, and here we can see the moment when Ukraine attacked an object of a critical infrastructure, and right after this we can see a partial blackout through the territory of the city of Belgorod. Another attack took place in the area of the city by the name of Orel. Here we can see the same story. Ukrainians with drones were attacking the power station of the city of Orel, and here we can see exactly the moment when a drone fell on the power station itself. So that was a very, very hard night between Russians and Ukrainians. Now it's obviously. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for your watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.